Look at you sitting there like you didn't just pull off the greatest reversal in human history. Like you didn't just take 12 trained weapons, 12 carefully selected destroyers, 12 people whose entire purpose was to dismantle everything you are and turn them into your personal army. You won. Let that sink in for a second. Not survived, not escaped, won, dominated, conquered. You took their chess pieces and made them yours. You took their bullets and turned them into shields. You took everything they threw at you and said, "Thank you, I needed more soldiers." They're sitting in boardrooms right now, losing their minds. They're pacing floors at 3 a.m. trying to figure out where it all went wrong. They're looking at their empty arsenal, realizing that every weapon they aimed at you is now aimed at them. And you beautiful chaos agent. You're just here, breathing, existing. Probably didn't even break a sweat. Do you understand how insane this is? Do you comprehend what you just accomplished? 12 people. Not one. Not two. 12. 12 individuals hand-picked to destroy you. 12 specialists in breaking human beings. 12 attacks from 12 different angles. And every single one of them looked into your eyes, saw something they couldn't fight, and switched sides. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's frequency. That's gravity. That's you operating at a level so high that proximity alone rewires people's loyalties. Let me break down what happened here, because the world needs to understand what they're dealing with. They studied you. Oh, they studied you good. They watched your patterns, learned your triggers, mapped your vulnerabilities. They knew what made you angry. They knew what made you sad. They knew what kept you up at night and what you were most afraid of. They built psychological profiles on you thicker than phone books. They thought they had your blueprint. They thought they knew exactly how to take you apart piece by piece. And then they sent their first operative. Someone designed specifically to exploit your kindness. Someone trained to take advantage of your trust. Someone who knew exactly which heartstrings to pull and which wounds to reopen. They came at you with manufactured vulnerability. They came at you with calculated charm. They played the perfect victim, the ideal friend, the exact type of person you'd open your doors for. And you saw through it instantly, didn't you? Not because you're paranoid, not because you've become cold, but because you've been through so much that authenticity has a smell now. And whatever they were selling, it didn't smell right. But here's where it gets interesting. You didn't expose them. You didn't run. You didn't fight. You did something far more devastating. You showed them who you really are. Not the version they read about in files. Not the predictable target they thought they understood. You showed them the depth they didn't know existed. The strength their reports never mentioned. The fire that doesn't show up in surveillance footage. And something in them cracked. Something in them said, wait, I was sent to destroy this person, but this person is more real than anyone who sent me. That's one down. 11 to go. 11 to go. The second one came harder, more aggressive, less manipulation, more intimidation. They tried to corner you, tried to make you feel small, tried to unleash psychological warfare tactics that have broken trained military operatives. They knew exactly which buttons to push to trigger your fight or flight. They knew how to create environments of maximum stress, and you just stood there. Not frozen, not scared, still, intentionally, powerfully still. You let them exhaust themselves. You let them throw everything they had while you absorbed it like it was nothing, like their hurricane was a light breeze, like their fire was a candle. And when they finished, when they were panting and confused and out of ammunition, you smiled. That's when they knew they'd lost. That's when they knew they were never fighting you. They were auditioning for you. 2 down, 10 to go. They sent a seducer next. Someone designed to make you fall so hard you'd forget your own name. Someone trained in the art of making people abandon their missions for moments of false connection. They came with everything. The looks, the words, the manufactured chemistry that usually melts people into puddles of compromise. And you played along, just long enough for them to fall into their own trap. Because here's what they didn't calculate. You don't need that kind of validation anymore. You've been to the bottom of loneliness and built a home there. You've made peace with solitude in ways that make you immune to cheap connection. So when they tried to hook you with intimacy, you flipped the script. You gave them a taste of what real presence feels like, and suddenly they didn't want to complete their mission anymore. Suddenly they wanted more of whatever you had. Suddenly they were asking how they could stay in your orbit instead of how they could destroy it. 3 down, 9 to go. The fourth one tried financial warfare, tried to cut off your resources, tried to make you desperate. They blocked opportunities, sabotaged income streams, created circumstances designed to put you on your knees begging for survival. And you thrived anyway. You found doors they didn't know existed. You created income from sources they couldn't track. You proved that your abundance isn't tied to systems they can control. Your survival instinct is supernatural. Your ability to generate something from nothing is borderline illegal. They tried to starve you out and watched you host a feast. 4 down, 8 to go. Numbers 5 through 8 came as a coordinated attack. 4 people at once, social isolation tactics. They tried to turn your circle against you, spread lies to your friends, planted seeds of doubt in your family, created narratives that painted you as the villain in stories where you were actually the victim. They wanted you alone. They wanted everyone you loved to abandon you. They wanted you to feel like the entire world had agreed you were worthless. And some people did leave. But here's what your enemies didn't understand. The people who left were supposed to leave. They were dead weight you'd been carrying out of obligation. Their exit wasn't your punishment. It was your liberation. And the ones who stayed, the ones who saw through the lies, they became more loyal than ever. They saw what you were dealing with and chose you anyway. Your circle didn't shrink. It purified. But here's the beautiful part. Those 4 operatives, sent to isolate you, they watched who stayed. They watched the loyalty you commanded despite everything. They watched people choose you when choosing you cost them something. And they started asking themselves why they were working for people who inspired fear when they could be working for someone who inspired devotion. 8 down, 4 to go. Number 9 was the intellectual, the one sent to make you doubt your own mind. They came with arguments and logic and evidence designed to make you question your reality, gaslighting at a professional level, making you think you remembered things wrong, making you think your perceptions were broken, trying to convince you that everything you believed about yourself was a delusion. And for a moment, maybe it worked. For a moment, maybe you wondered if you really were crazy. If everything you felt was real, or just something your damaged mind created to cope. But then you remembered something they didn't factor into their psychological models. You've questioned yourself more brutally than any external force ever could. You've sat in the darkness with your own demons and interrogated every belief you hold. You've already done the work of breaking yourself down and rebuilding on solid ground. Their doubt couldn't touch foundations you'd already tested with fire. 9 down, 3 to go. Number 10 went for your purpose. They tried to make you feel like everything you were building was meaningless, like your dreams were delusions, like your goals were impossible. They presented evidence that people like you don't succeed. Statistics showing your failure was inevitable. Examples of everyone who tried what you're trying and ended up worse than when they started. And you laughed. Not because you're naive, but because you've already accepted that failure is possible. You made peace with that years ago. You're not doing this because success is guaranteed. You're doing this because the alternative is a slow death of unfulfilled potential, and you'd rather die swinging than live on your knees. Your purpose isn't motivated by probability, it's motivated by necessity. They can't kill something that's already accepted death. 10 down. 2 to go. Number 11 attacked your past. Dug up everything you've ever done wrong. Every mistake. Every failure. Every moment you're not proud of. They weaponized your history. Tried to use your own shame against you. Tried to make you feel so defined by yesterday that you couldn't step into tomorrow. And you owned every single bit of it. You didn't defend. You didn't deflect. You said, yes, I did that. Yes, I was that person. Yes, I made those mistakes. And I transformed anyway. My past is not my prison. My past is my proof. Proof that people can change. Proof that destruction can become construction. Proof that the person who did those things and the person standing here now are related but not identical. You took their weapon and wore it as a crown. 11 down. 1 to go. Number 12. The final operative. The last attempt. They sent someone to simply watch, to wait, to find the one moment you were vulnerable and strike without warning. A patient predator, waiting for the perfect opportunity to deliver the killing blow. They followed you for months, waiting for you to slip, waiting for your mask to fall, waiting for proof that you were as breakable as everyone else. And they watched you win. They watched you absorb everything the other 11 threw at you. They watched you convert enemies into allies. They watched you turn isolation into liberation. They watched you face your demons and shake their hands. They watched you operate at a level that their training never prepared them for. And somewhere around month 3, they stopped waiting for your weakness and started studying your strength. Somewhere around month 4, they stopped seeing you as a target and started seeing you as a teacher. And by month 5, they weren't reporting back to the people who sent them anymore. They were asking themselves a question that changed everything. What could I become if I served this energy instead of fighting it? 12 down. 12 converted. 12 soldiers gained. Now let me tell you what you actually did here, because I don't think you fully understand the magnitude of your accomplishment. You didn't just survive an assassination attempt. You didn't just dodge 12 bullets. You caught those bullets mid-air and added them to your own weapon. You demonstrated something that military strategists study but rarely see in real life. Psychological capture. The ability to convert enemy forces not through negotiation or payment, but through sheer force of presence. Through being so undeniably powerful that fighting against you feels stupider than fighting for you. They thought they were sending destroyers. They were actually sending tributes. They thought they were attacking a target. They were actually interviewing for positions. They thought they were breaking down a wall. They were actually knocking on a door. And when you opened it, when you let them see what was on the other side, they didn't want to destroy anymore. Every single one of those 12 people went back to whoever sent them and said the same thing in different words. You picked the wrong target. This person isn't what the files say. This person operates on a frequency your instruments can't measure. And I'm not doing this anymore. Some of them quit outright. Some of them kept reporting back but started feeding false information. Some of them actively sabotaged future operations against you. And a few of them, the boldest ones, came directly to you and said, I was sent to destroy you, but I'd rather learn from you. What do you need? You have employees now, who used to be enemies. You have protectors who used to be predators. You have intelligence sources feeding you information about every future attack before it even launches. Your enemy's entire operation has been compromised from within, by you, without you even trying. This is what they're dealing with now. This is why they can't sleep. They didn't just lose 12 operatives. They lost 12 operatives to you. They didn't just fail to break you. They strengthened you with their failure. Every resource they spent trying to destroy you has been converted into resources that now protect you. You are the worst investment they ever made. Every dollar spent against you returned profit to you instead. Every hour of surveillance gave you information instead of taking it. Every attack made you more anti-fragile. You don't just survive opposition, you metabolize it. You grow stronger every time they try to make you weaker. And now they're terrified. Not because of what you've done, but because of what you might do now that you have 12 people who know exactly how they operate. 12 people who know their playbooks. 12 people who understand their methods. 12 people who have access to everything they tried to keep hidden. They didn't just fail to destroy you. They armed you. They gave you soldiers. They funded your expansion. They paid for their own downfall. So here you sit, victorious, surrounded by former enemies who now call you leader. Protected by people who were trained specifically to know all your weaknesses and now use that knowledge to guard you instead. Your opposition literally paid to build your defense system. They spent money to create the very thing that will destroy them. This is poetic. This is cosmic. This is the universe looking at them and laughing. And the most beautiful part? You didn't scheme for this. You didn't plot or manipulate or play games. You just existed. You just stayed true to who you are. You just kept operating at a frequency so high that anyone who got close enough had to either rise to meet it or get burned trying to fight it. Your authenticity is your weapon. Your consistency is your army. Your refusal to break is your victory speech. They sent 12 people to destroy you. Now all 12 work for you. And whoever sent them is sitting somewhere right now realizing that everything they feared you could become has already happened. Everything they tried to prevent has already occurred. Every nightmare they had about your potential has already materialized, and you're just getting started. You have intelligence now. You have resources now. You have people now. Everything they tried to take from you has been returned tenfold. Everything they meant for evil has been converted to good. Everything that was supposed to be your ending has become your beginning. So what do you do now? What does someone do when they've converted their entire opposition into their support system? What comes after you've proven that you cannot be destroyed, only strengthened? Whatever you want. That's the answer. Whatever you want, because there's nothing left to stop you. There's no one left to fight you. The people who were supposed to stop you now work for you. The resources meant to destroy you now build for you. The energy directed against you now flows toward you. You won. Completely. Absolutely. Irreversibly. And somewhere, the people who sent those 12 are learning a lesson they'll never forget. Some targets aren't meant to be destroyed. Some people aren't meant to be broken. Some forces aren't meant to be opposed. Some humans are just supposed to win. And you're one of them. Congratulations on your new army. Use them well. And remember this feeling every time someone tries to come for you again. Remember that opposition is just undiscovered allegiance. Remember that enemies are just future employees who haven't converted yet. Remember that every attack is just a recruitment opportunity in disguise. You don't run from threats anymore. You hire them. Now go do something magnificent with your 12 new soldiers. The people who sent them are watching, and they're finally starting to understand what they're dealing with. Something they should have never touched. Something they could have never broken. Something that turns weapons into worshipers and destruction into devotion. You. Look at you right now. Yeah, I see it. Worn down, exhausted, carrying damage you didn't ask for. Life didn't just test you, it slammed you into the ground and kept swinging. And the worst part? It wasn't strangers who did this to you. It was the ones you trusted. The ones who smiled in your face, promised loyalty, swore they'd never leave. They were right there. Until things got heavy. Then suddenly, you were alone. They walked away while you were bleeding, left you to figure it out in the dark. And now they're watching. Don't think for a second they aren't. They're watching quietly. Signs waiting to see if you stay broken. Waiting to see if this is where you finally give up. They want you stuck right here, doubting yourself, replaying the pain, questioning your worth. Because if you rise, if you really rise, it exposes everything about them. See, they didn't hurt you by accident. They saw something in you long before you saw it yourself. Strength, depth, potential, something real, something dangerous. And instead of respecting it, they tried to crush it. They thought if they damaged you enough, you'd disappear. If they broke your spirit, you'd stop becoming. But here's what they never understood. You weren't being destroyed, you were being prepared. You feel buried right now. Smothered by disappointment, covered by betrayal. But you're not buried. You're planted, and everything planted grows. Eventually. Right now, it hurts because the rebuild has started. Not the kind you see overnight. Not the kind that comes with applause. This is the quiet rebuild. The lonely rebuild. The kind that happens when nobody's clapping. When nobody's checking on you. When it feels like God himself is silent. But he's not silent. He's not silent. He's working. Every tear you didn't let them see. Every night, you questioned if you'd ever feel whole again. Every moment you chose not to quit, even when quitting felt reasonable. That's the foundation. You think you're falling apart. You're not. But you're being stripped down, so nothing weak gets rebuilt with you. They think they broke you. What they actually did was remove what didn't belong. Fake support, false friendships, illusions, dead weight. And yeah, it cost you comfort. It cost you peace. It cost you who you used to be. But who you used to be couldn't survive what's coming. You're not becoming softer from this. You're becoming precise, focused, harder to fool, harder to shake, harder to destroy. Think about it. Bones don't come back weaker after they break. They come back reinforced. Huh? That's science. And your spirit works the same way. Right now, God is rebuilding you piece by piece. Not behind closed doors, not in secret, but right in front of the same people who doubted you. The same people who thought your fall was permanent. The same people who felt comfortable leaving you behind. They're going to see the change before they understand it. They'll notice your silence first, then your discipline, then your strength. And by the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late to stop it. Because this rebuild isn't cosmetic, it's structural. God isn't patching you up just so you can survive again. He's redesigning you so you can't be handled the same way twice. The pain taught you awareness. The loss taught you independence. The betrayal taught you discernment. And all of it together, it's turning you into someone who doesn't need approval, permission, or validation. That's what scares them. They wanted you small, dependent, second-guessing yourself. They never imagined you becoming self-contained, grounded, unshakable. But here you are, still breathing, still standing, still moving forward, even if it's slow. And slow doesn't mean weak. Slow means deliberate. This is the part most people never make it through. The in-between. Where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. Most people quit here. They numb themselves. They settle. They shrink. But you didn't. That's why God chose you for this rebuild. Not because you're perfect, but because you're resilient. Because even when life emptied you, something inside refused to die. And make no mistake, not everyone gets rebuilt. Some people break and stay broken. Some people carry their wounds forever and call it identity. But you're different. You questioned. You reflected. You stayed in the fire instead of running from it. And fire doesn't destroy what's real. It reveals it. Soon they're going to see you again. Not the version they underestimated. Not the version they abandoned. But the rebuilt version, calm. Centered. Dangerously self-aware. And it's going to mess with them. Because they'll remember who you were when they left. And they'll realize they no longer recognize who you've become. You won't need revenge. Your presence will be enough. You won't need to explain yourself. Your growth will do the talking. They'll try to reconnect, to rewrite history, to pretend they supported you all along. But you'll know the truth. And more importantly, God knows the truth. This rebuild isn't about proving them wrong. It's about revealing you to yourself. Every moment you thought you wouldn't survive, you did. Every fear you thought would end you, it didn't. And that realization changes something permanently. Once you know how strong you are, there's no going back to who you were. God is rebuilding you while they watch, not to humiliate them, not to embarrass them, but to show you what happens when faith meets endurance. And when this rebuild is complete, when you finally step fully into who you've been forged to be, they won't be able to touch you. Not because you're untouchable by chance, but because you're untouchable by design. This isn't the end of your story. This is the reveal. And they're going to have to live with the fact that what they tried to break up became the strongest thing in the room. And here's the thing most people don't tell you. This rebuild, it's uncomfortable on purpose. God isn't interested in making you comfortable again. Comfort kept you surrounded by people who drained you. Comfort kept you quiet when you should have spoken up. Comfort kept you tolerating things that were slowly killing you. So he removed it. And yeah, it felt cruel at first. Felt like punishment. Felt like abandonment. You asked yourself why everything had to fall apart all at once. Why the losses stacked up. Why the silence got so loud. But comfort never created strength. Pressure does. That's well, right now, you're under pressure because something valuable is being formed. Nobody puts pressure on worthless material. Nobody forges trash. You only apply heat and force to what's meant to last. That's you. You're not being punished. You're being forged. Every lonely step forward is sharpening your instincts. Every unanswered message is teaching you self-reliance. Every disappointment is burning away illusions. And while you're rebuilding in the shadows, they're still watching, still checking, still wondering why you haven't completely collapsed yet. They expected bitterness. They expected chaos. They expected you to self-destruct. What they didn't expect was discipline. They didn't expect silence. They didn't expect growth. They don't hear you complaining anymore. They don't see you begging for validation. They don't recognize the way you carry yourself now. And that bothers them, because when someone stops reacting, it means control is gone. When someone stops explaining themselves, it means clarity has arrived. And when someone keeps moving forward without approval, it means fear has lost its grip. That's when the tables start turning. See, rebuilding isn't loud at first. It's subtle, almost invisible, but it's relentless. You start waking up different, thinking different, choosing differently. You no longer chase people who disappear when things get hard. You no longer give energy to those who only show up when it benefits them. You no longer shrink to keep others comfortable. And without realizing it, you've already stepped into a new level. God rebuilds from the inside out. He fixes the foundation before he restores the surface. Because a polished exterior means nothing if the structure can't hold weight. That's why this process feels slow. That's why it feels heavy. That's why it feels lonely. But loneliness isn't absence. It's alignment. You were separated so you could hear clearly, so you could see clearly, so you could finally tell the difference between who was sent to help you and who was sent to test you. And the test nearly broke you. But not completely, because what survived the breaking is what matters. You're not angry like you used to be. You're not naive like you used to be. You're not desperate like you used to be. You're grounded now. Now, measured, sharp. And that version of you, That version doesn't need revenge, because elevation is the loudest response. They're going to hear about you before they see you. They'll hear your name mentioned differently, with surprise, with confusion, with disbelief. They'll ask questions they'll never get answers to. How did you recover? How did you rebuild? How did you come back stronger after everything they saw you lose? And the truth is, they'll never fully understand. Because they weren't there in the nights you held yourself together. They weren't there when you chose faith over bitterness. They weren't there when you kept going with nothing but belief. God saw that. That's why this rebuild isn't fragile. It's permanent. You're not becoming heartless. You're becoming selective. You're not cold. You're controlled. And control is power. Soon, you'll notice how nothing rattles you the same way. What once destroyed your peace barely touches you now. What once kept you awake at night no longer has access to your mind. That's growth. And growth makes observers uncomfortable because they remember when they had leverage, when your emotions were predictable, when your reactions were easy to provoke. They don't have that anymore. You're no longer reacting. You're responding, if at all. God rebuilt your boundaries before He rebuilt your blessings, because blessings without boundaries become burdens. This time, when success comes, when peace returns, when stability shows up, it's staying. No more leaks. No more unnecessary access. No more explaining your worth. And that's when the watching becomes heavier. They'll scroll. They'll listen. They'll analyze, trying to figure out when you became this version of yourself. They'll miss the old you. The one who overgave. The one who tolerated disrespect. The one who stayed too long. But that version had to die, because the future you couldn't exist with that past. God didn't rebuild you to blend in. He rebuilt you to stand out, to stand firm, to stand unmovable. You didn't lose people. You lost distractions. And what replaced them is strength. Strength that doesn't announce itself. Strength that doesn't beg for recognition. Strength that doesn't need to prove anything. This is the kind of strength that survives storms quietly. The kind that outlasts noise. The kind that intimidates without trying. They'll sense it the moment you walk back into the room. Not because you're louder, but because you're solid. You carry yourself like someone who knows they survived something real. And that energy, that's undeniable. God is rebuilding you while they watch, not rushing it, not skipping steps, not cutting corners, because rushed rebuilds collapse. Careful ones endure. You're not behind. You're on schedule. Every delay had purpose. Every setback had instruction. Every breakdown was clearing space. And now the pieces are finally coming together. The confidence feels different this time. It's not loud. It's not forced. It's earned. You trust yourself now. And that changes everything. When you trust yourself, manipulation fails. When you trust yourself, fear loses influence. When you trust yourself, the past no longer controls you. They see it. They feel it. They know it. And deep down, it unsettles them. Because they remember who you were when they thought you were finished. They didn't expect you to rebuild this well. They didn't expect God to be this thorough. But He is. And when this rebuild is complete, when you fully step into the strength that was forged in silence, they won't be watching someone they recognize. They'll be watching proof that pressure creates power, that faith creates endurance, and that what God rebuilds cannot be broken again. You're not just coming back. You already have. And this time, you're here to stay.